Hello, hello. Welcome to this edition of At the Mic. I am your host, Keith Malinak, and it is time for the Thursday deep dive. So grateful that you made time today. I know that it's cold wherever you are, unless you're in Florida. Congratulations. But we've got an exciting show here, and I'm so looking forward to having this discussion today with my guest. Before I bring him in here, I want to give you a heads up in case you weren't aware that last night I was on with Kay Daly and Drax. They have a show on X, and I was the guest there. I tweeted out a link to that earlier this morning. If you want to go and check that out. Well, don't go check it out right now because obviously you're a little busy for the next hour or two. So you can go and check that out later. How's that? We've got the Friday live stream coming up tomorrow. If you're not a subscriber to my X page channel thing, $2 a month. The reason I am telling you about that is you'll want to be subscribed before the Friday live stream 24 hours from now, because there's going to be 5 giveaways. 5 giveaways during tomorrow's Friday live stream. Going to be a full house. Rebecca will be here. Okay, so I know a lot of you were disappointed that there were no Norks last week, but Rebecca will be here along with Kelly and Brad. Before I go any further, shout out to 2 people that I love dearly. Thank you, Wes. He's on X at Second Floor Dallas. And thank you, Gabby at Jeffy Apologist. They work behind the scenes to make sure that this program is available. You can go to the Instagram channel at The Mike Show, where Gabby keeps things rocking and rolling over there. And of course, Wes doing the great art. He did a great video this week for this show. And I love that. So you can scroll down and see that here on my X feed. Congratulations to YouTube, where today's show is actually posted. So if it's more convenient for you to watch this live over on YouTube, feel free to do that. Now, a few weeks ago, I was scrolling through X and I ran across a guy's study on something that really piqued my curiosity, because I am a football fan. I am a fantasy football commissioner. I've been the commissioner of the same fantasy football league, I'll have you know, for 27 seasons with the same core group of guys. And one thing that we have noticed in recent years is that, yes, there are football injuries. I know this isn't a football topic necessarily, so if you don't like football, just relax. There's something in this for you. But we have noticed that in the last 10 years that there's one team that suffers injuries at a much more frequent clip than the rest of the league. And it's frustrating. It's almost like now, and it's not almost, it is built in that when you have a player on your fantasy football roster from the San Francisco 49ers, that you just know, holy crap, I'm going to have to get the backup for this guy, because this guy's definitely going to be injured because he plays for the 49ers. Now, I just figured over the years that they just had a terrible conditioning program, or they had a medical staff that was subpar, until I saw a study. And that leads me to this guest here. If you're not subscribed to Peter Cowan's Substack. Hi, Peter. How are you, sir? Let's see here. Where's
I'm
my...
good. I just had to turn my audio on.
Awesome, man. So give everyone the name of your Substack, because there's some incredible information over there that you have revealed that we need to go over with today.
Yeah, it's Peter Anthony Cowan, Cowan at Substack.
Peter Anthony Cowan.
Just, you can also go to living_energy at X, and all my links are there in my bio.
Okay, awesome. Living_energy on X. Yeah, all the links there. Okay, so Peter, I reached out to you because, my goodness, this has been something, as I just mentioned, on my mind for years and years. And to see it laid out in a study, it blew my mind. So start wherever you want to. I think you're a 49ers fan, correct?
I am, but I have to be honest. Like, I grew up, in the 80s in the Bay Area, Joe Montana, Steve Young, all that stuff. But when I was 5 or 6, the Raiders won the Super Bowl. And so honestly, I bleed silver and black, even though I love the 49ers. Like, it's just, Raiders are in my soul. And I lived in Oakland for a while, and I would ride my bike to the the stadium when they had their, the Raiders fans drive 5 hours, even farther, to come to the games, and I just kind of cruise around and drink beers with the Raiders fans and stuff. So,
that's a good fan base to be drinking beers with.
It is, but I also want to say I love NFL in general. I pretty much love every team. I'm not going to say the teams that I don't love because I don't want to alienate anyone. But I just love the beauty of the game and NFL films and just like.
Oh my goodness, man! You are singing my song because growing up, I would go to the Blockbuster Video, and actually I think it was a Hollywood Video in my neighborhood, and rent every NFL film multiple times, man. The Football Follies, the series of John Facenda. I mean, it got in my blood. Hell, you can see back here. This is actually my bedroom curtain when I was about 10 years old.
No way.
And so that's in my blood as well. But as a Falcons fan, I'm long suffering. And the San Francisco 49ers, and you mentioned Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, they were in the Falcons division, the NFC West. And I was jealous every single year. Yeah. And then one magical season, they won on a Hail Mary. It was 1991. And they won in a Hail Mary against the 49ers in Atlanta Fulton County Stadium, snuck into the playoffs that year. And then, of course, they lost because they're never going to win the Super Bowl. But I just a big fan of Joe Montana and Jerry Rice in that combination. So
yeah, Jerry Rice, I forgot to mention. I mean, he's the best. I love him. He came back to the Raiders in the early 2000s, and that brought me back. Honestly, that brought me back to football in general. I'd taken a long break, and I was like, awesome. This guy rules, man.
He was awesome. Yes. So, okay. When I saw your story, the pump was already primed in my brain as to what is going on with the San Francisco 49ers, because year after year after year, and kudos to Kyle Shanahan, who was the former offensive coordinator of my Atlanta Falcons, who took the head coaching job, after the 2016 season. So he's been the head coach there for 9 or 10 years. And it always seems like he is able to put together a very good team despite catastrophic injuries plaguing that roster every year. It is unbelievable. So tell us why you even started looking into this. Take us back to the beginning of your research of this, because I've got 4 different Substacks of yours on this printed up here that are just fascinating, but I want to let you start the story where you want to, man.
Sure. Yeah. I think it actually goes back to 2022. my daughter got really into football, and her mom and her stepdad were really into the Chiefs. And I'm like, we got like nothing against the Chiefs. But it's like, I can't have a daughter who grows up loving the Chiefs because that's not my team, And like, so I talked to her, and like, she wanted to go to a game. I was like, okay, we'll go to a Niners game. And we were down in the Bay because I grew up in the Bay, and we flew down there, and it was a Christmas Eve game. And the first time I'd ever been to the Levi Stadium, I'd been to Candlestick growing up, which to me is just like an iconic place. I don't know if you've ever been there, but like,
no,
it's on the edge of the Bay, and it's just this weird, just like windy, isolated place, It's like iconic. And then Levi's is like, okay, you're in like suburbia, like office land.
Right.
Then you climb up the back stairs and you look over, and there's this massive substation. And it's like, you can hear it buzzing, and it's just like, that's weird. But I didn't think about it too much at the time. I just thought, this feels kind of weird. And then I want to give a shout out. I got the best burnt ends I've ever had in my life at Smoking Pig Barbecue at the stadium.
Nice.
And I think they got some locations that are not in the stadium, so I'm not getting paid by them. I'm just like, that was good.
Not a sponsor, but willing to be if you want them. Right?
No, I'm not taking any money for anything. I'm here out of my soul, but I would gladly take some free burn ends if that ever happened. So that was the first time I like went into my brain, and then this last year, Chase Sr., who's a YouTube commentator on 49ers and the Eagles, actually, he posted something that crossed my feed about how there was a theory amongst the players that the substation was causing their injuries. And I got to tell you, actually, I should go back a little bit. A buddy of mine does a Super Bowl party every year. And in 2024, I think it was, I distinctly remembered seeing Dre Greenlaw run from the sidelines. I think they were playing against the Chiefs. Run from the sidelines and pop his Achilles tendon just on the way from the sidelines into the field.
Oh.
And do you remember that?
No, I don't remember that one.
Yeah. So, and I was just like, how the hell did that happen? He didn't touch anything, and he's just running. Like maybe it was cold. I don't even remember maybe where they were playing. Maybe it was Kansas City and it was colder or something. But it still seems kind of shocking to me that you could have this non-contact Achilles tendon pop. Because I was playing basketball with a friend many years ago, and I'm not much of a basketball player, but they were getting aggressive. So like, okay, I'm going to get aggressive. And we jumped up, and I just landed and kind of skidded on his Achilles tendon. He popped it. Like, I've seen it in person. It's terrible. Yeah. And like, I know the kind of impact that I put on him that caused that to happen. So I'm just like, this is weird.
Okay.
So then fast forward to Chase Sr. making that post on X, and I saw it because I follow this guy who's he's actually EMF hypersensitive, and it's kind of all he posts about, and he posts all day, every day on Twitter. So that post crossed my feed, and I thought that's really interesting. And so I looked at the video that he had linked to, and it was a video of John Feliciano, an ex-49er, being interviewed on a Bay Area radio show with video though. And he's joking, he's like, there's a joke amongst the players that all these injuries are caused by the electrical substation behind our facilities. But then he goes on and he says, there are some very high level players in the organization who take this seriously.
Wow.
And he says, it's something about the thyroid, and these are like some crunchy granola types who are just like really serious about their health. And that was that. And interestingly, I went back to get that video after this. Well, as I was writing the story, because I wanted to link it, and I found it, and I bookmarked it. I forgot to bookmark it rather. And I went back after the story broke, and I couldn't find it. So I feel like maybe it got scrubbed. But
interesting.
If any of your YouTube followers want to look for it and send it to you, that'd be amazing, because I'd love to get that clip again. So anyway, that clip is kind of what made me think, okay, you know what? I didn't know that the 49ers had a really statistically improbable injury rate. I had no idea. I'm not like I said, I think it's beautiful sport, and I watch it for the aesthetics primarily. Can't even tell you name of all the positions or most of the rules, honestly. I'm like, well, why can't they do that?
They're always changing,
and
Peter.
They're changing too. Yeah. But I'm just like, why didn't he just do this? And my friend, he's like, who's a lawyer who knows every rule about everything. He's like, he'll explain it to me. I'm like, okay, but I just like the plays. I like when they're running and like it opens up and they're just like charging. Anyway, we could talk about that all day. But awesome. So I was like, I want to take these players seriously, because they're getting injured a lot, and it sucks, because they might be rich athletes, but they're still people. Yeah. And honestly, in the dynamics of a sports league, they're not the ones with the power. Their bodies are basically tools of these enterprises that are $5 billion+ machines, and so they if somebody's not listening to them, that's not really right. So I thought, I'm going to listen to them. And it happened to overlap with some research that I had been doing for some clients that I had. And we can go into that later, but it's a triad of conditions called MCAS, EDS, and POTS. And one of the things that is part of that condition is tendon hyperflexibility and tendinopathy. So basically being prone to tendon injuries. And I had dug into that research trying to help some clients of mine. And so right when I saw that post, I was like, yeah, I know what's going on.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I've heard of POTS. I think there's some folks that believe that they're vaccine injured and got POTS. So explain this however you want to lay this out, man, because I just think this is fascinating. And where there's smoke, there's fire.
Well, and there's definitely smoke right now. Like the way that everybody's just kind of writing it off, like rather than engaging in good faith, there's smoke. So I will dig into that stuff if you want. Let's just finish. Like, so I got turned on to that story, and I put aside client work for a couple months to really focus on some app development that I've been doing. And these days, AI is so good at coding that I don't do much typing myself. I just speak prompts and then I read what it does just to make sure it's not like screwing me over. And then I got like 5-10 minutes just to wait. And that's not quite enough to go get up and do something else, but it's too much time scrolling. Like I don't want to sit and scroll social media. Not enough time to like do some deep reading. So I thought I'm just going to start writing up this hypothesis about the injuries in the substation. And I decided to focus specifically on the substation for a couple of reasons, because that's what the players were talking about. And just, I think there's more factors and it's bigger than just a substation, but you know, a story is a story. And I thought, okay, I'm going to follow this story and see where it leads. And also substations are weird. Like every time I mention it to someone, they're like, oh yeah, there's a substation on the corner around this business. And I always like the hairs always raise on my neck when I go by it. You know, it's weird, like industrial infrastructure that doesn't feel human in some way. It feels just this cold and like austere. So I think that piece really resonates with people. Whereas if I talk about their cell phones or their Wi-Fi or whatever, they're just gonna be like, I love my cell phone, you know, like, so, So I decided like I'm going to focus specifically on that. And then I was just like following my interest. And so I spent about a good month and a half writing it, finished it in December, got busy for the holidays. And then right around January 4th, I got back from a trip and my girls, they had been with their mom. So they came back to me and we celebrated Christmas late. We always do it on the Epiphany on 6th of January, Little Christmas, we call it. Whenever I don't have them for Christmas. And so I spent those 2 days, the 4th to the 6th, just like going fine-tooth comb through all of my references in every scientific journal and just like making sure that I wasn't making like a critical mistake. Like I'm sure I made some mistakes, but I wanted to make sure there was no like claim that I was making that wasn't actually in one of the journals. And then on the 6th, I pressed publish on my Substack and I had 0 subscribers at that point. And I didn't even have a Substack. I just created it as a place to put this writing. And so I pressed publish and then I created a Twitter thread and I closed my computer for 24 hours to celebrate with my girls. And then the next day I wake up and it's like, you have 500,000 views. And I had never had more than like 100. 100,000 or so. And the 100,000 I got was just from like shit posting this guy, Brian Johnson. He's like a biohacker. And it doesn't matter, but like, it's not, my account has not really been a serious account. It's just a way for me to blow off steam between writing code stuff. And so then it was going up 500,000 every hour or so.
I was one of them, by the way.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah. It sounds like you're maybe one of them, more than one of them. Like might have crushed your feet a couple times.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, this is crazy, and I kind of rolled with it and like got a little interest that week. But then it wasn't until the next week when the Niners played Philly, I think it was, and George Kittle had the classic non-contact tendon injury.
I thought of you immediately, man, in this interview.
And it was everybody. Yeah, that's right. You had already contacted me. So
yeah, you and I had already got this on the books, and then that happened. I was like, holy crap.
Yeah, you were like so just for everybody's context, I had never done an interview before this thing happened. I'd never been on a Zoom video with anybody.
Well, you're doing great.
Thank you. You're making me feel very at ease. No, I have no issues. Like whatever. Like I'm speaking from my heart, and like it doesn't matter. So that immediately it blew up overnight. And Will Compton, I think it was,
former Husker.
Yeah, he quote tweeted me. He said this article should have 1 billion views. And that guy, he's probably got millions of followers. So that just like that shot it into the NFL world. And a journalist named Grant Cohn, I hope I got his name pronounced right. He said, regardless of whether or not this is true, if the players believe it's true, it's going to be a problem for the Niners. And those and a couple other quote tweets just shot it to the stratosphere, and it was at like 21 million views the next day. And
that is
media inquiries, and just like my life overnight just changed. So here I am. Yeah.
Here you are, right?
Yeah.
Well, I hope it's changed for the better. I hope that I hope people are respecting your research and your work on this. So you publish that, you get some attention out there from some notable names, um, and as you go through this, the first thing I guess I want to ask you is, have you gotten much pushback on this theory, or has the audience pretty much said, you know what, this absolutely makes sense what's happening here?
It's there's like three camps, I would say, and there's really two, but one of them is I'm going to subdivide.
Okay.
So I would say from any mainstream press or anything that's related to any mainstream institution, it's complete dismissal as conspiracy theory without even taking the argument in good faith, without even really considering the actual argument. And then from people online, that I would say, especially on X, it's mostly like a warm reception of like, okay, this is interesting. I like in my gut, I feel like it just makes sense, like a lot of that. And then within the dismissal side, there's a bunch of people that are just like, you're just whining because you wish the 49ers won. Like, so I put that into its like on camp. Like,
did you tell them you published this before the playoffs started? No, it doesn't matter.
The thing I've learned about the online is nobody actually reads anything.
You're right. Yep. So true.
Like just so everybody gets an idea of what I just learned. So 22 million views on that first tweet in the thread. Something like, I haven't looked recently, but like I think it's less than 1 million on the second tweet. And then my Substack article, the first article, got 80,000 views.
Okay.
By the time you get to the third article, which is the final one that lays out any of the mechanisms, it's like maybe 8,000 views. So
90% of the audience didn't continue on this trek with you.
Yeah. But yet everybody's talking about it like they know something about it.
Thank you. So welcome to social media. Am I right?
Yeah, right. So that just, I think I'm in some ways kind of, I don't want to say I'm a naive person, but I think I just give people the benefit of the doubt. And I like to exist in a world where I think, okay, people mean well and they're doing the best. And I think they are, but like, I also, that means that I assume that other people put the level of attention into things that I do. And I've learned that that's not always the case, unfortunately. And I've had to really pull back and stop engaging with people because it's just a waste of my time.
That's so true. So true. Okay. So, let me do this. Let me establish this at the onset, because you talk about ELF in your articles, and there's some EMF. I mean, in fact, this is the headline of the first Substack. Could chronic EMF exposure from a nearby substation be causing the 49ers epidemic of tendon ruptures? So that right there is a hook for me. And I'm not trying to be facetious here. I'm being completely honest. What I am holding in my hand, I purchased because of a previous guest, a ghost hunter, Tom Carr. He may be in the audience right now, and it's an EMF detector. He and I have gone out hunting for ghosts before. He's come to Dallas here, and we've gone out. And if I hold this up, let's see here. Like if I hold this up to, this is a bad example, but there are places in my house where there are electronics, and it'll go nuts, Mm-hmm. And so the thinking is you go into the field, in the middle of nowhere where there's no electronics, and you can pick up energies that many people believe are spirits in another dimension. So here's my question for you. Is that the same kind of thing we're talking about at these substations? And if so, could something like this be helpful in your research?
Yeah, and the answer is yes. The one that you're holding, I believe, is probably like a tri-field meter sort of thing, where it measures different frequencies, like with different settings. I have specialized devices to measure specific kinds of frequencies. So, okay. But it's the same idea. You'd have to tell me what the device is, and
I don't even know, man. I barely even know how to turn the thing on.
Okay, yeah. Typically, there's a couple different kind of frequencies. You have magnetic fields,
okay,
and you have RF fields, and you have electric fields. those are the like, and there's other ones, but those are the main ones. The fourth one is called dirty electricity, and it's basically like line noise, like on an electrical field. So if you think of like a sine wave, it's very clean. The dirty electricity is like a sine wave on top of the sine wave, so just kind of giving squiggly lines. So it's interference.
Okay.
And so I have specialized tools to measure each one of those because I do EMF mitigation. I don't do ghost hunting, unfortunately. I'd like to try it,
Sure.
But that stuff is really kind of interesting right now because of the whole telepathy tapes and stuff. But yeah, that's the idea.
Okay, so that's the idea. Yeah, and so you've got this. Explain the campus for the 49ers and explain, like, for instance, the practice field and the proximity to this substation.
Yeah. So basically you got a really massive city block, and on one end is the 49ers stadium. And then next to it is like a natural gas facility. And then you come a little bit closer and there's the training facility right here. And then right behind the natural gas facility is the electrical facility.
Wow.
And I would guess and then past the training facility is the field. And right next to the field is a driveway that goes back to the facilities. And I was talking to the guards there. I think the driveway is probably like 25 feet, maybe 30 feet wide. So the distance between the fence line for the substation and the fence line for the practice facilities is 30 feet. Now, how much buffer space is between the facility and the fence and the facility and I don't exactly know, but it's not that much.
Right.
And so where I was, though, was at the very end of the practice field, which is, how long is a football field? It's like 100 yards or whatever. And so it's like, I was maybe about 120 yards from the facilities.
Okay. So I'm trying to, and I don't remember this from your stuff here, and I'm not going to be able to go through here. Did you, do the position players at the practice facility and the field, do they all gather in the same, do they each have their own spot on the practice field? In other words, do the running backs practice in this corner and the tight ends over here? No, okay.
I don't know. I'm not an NFL expert at all. Like I said, I barely know the rules, and all the statistics I got were from a writer named Aaron Schatz.
Okay. I just wonder if it's possible to break down these injuries to where a particular position hangs out. In other words, if the corner of the practice field is the closest to the substation, I guarantee you it's the running backs.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
You see, because I mean, they go through them every few weeks. In fantasy football, if you pick up any running back for the 49ers in a typical season, that player, there's a chance by the end of the year is going to be the starter for the 49ers, going to be a star on your team.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
That's the thing about Christian McCaffrey, is that he is arguably the best at that position in the league, but the man can't stay healthy. And holy crap, look at what we're unveiling here. Okay, so what?
Can I address one thing there, though?
Sure, please,
you're asking about position. I'm actually more concerned about when they're inside the facilities, the building itself.
Okay.
That's the closest. And my understanding is that even when they're not doing drills and stuff for football, they're in there training, they're recovering, they're studying film highlights, maybe even late into the night and stuff.
Yes.
And so that's more of a concern to me.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah. That's right. So inside there, you're actually closer. So, okay. Can you go through then and explain the whole theory then of what EMFs are doing to tendons and soft tissue in the human body?
Yeah, I will. Can I just say one more thing first, though? Like, just to be clear, I did not measure the fields within the facility, so it still is an open question.
Yeah.
Though I have heard from people who say they've been inside that the readings in the facility were up to 4 times higher than what I got, which is, when I wrote my article, I did a whole sidebar on this is how I projected what I thought the fields would be. And I think I even made some mistakes there and kind of went lower than I thought it could be. But
Wow.
It really depends on the engineering and where the transformers are and what kind of busings they use and all this stuff. And like if some engineer wants to get in touch with me and really knows substation engineering, that'd be an interesting thing to talk about. But also at this point, like the 49ers say that they're going to look into it. So I just want to be clear that I don't actually know what we're seeing in there.
It's just a great theory, and it makes sense.
It makes sense.
And people that have more access than you, like the 49ers franchise, I mean, hell, these are their $1 million investments out there. We can only hope that they will indeed pursue this. Okay, where do you want to go next here, Peter?
Well, let's talk about, we can talk about the hypothesis, but I want to know, like, what level of detail do you think your audience wants to hear it in?
Well, I don't know, audience. What kind of level of detail do you put it in the chat there? I want to hear everything you have to say.
Okay.
And you take as much time as you need to, because I am absolutely fascinated by this, man.
Okay. I tend to be like, so I do my research and I get it out on paper, and then I leave some of the details behind because I'm more of like a high level abstract conceptual thinker.
Sure.
So I will do my best. And if anybody wants any details, like, I can pull up the essay and dig into certain things, but it's probably not like going to come straight from my brain. So the basic high level thesis is that EMFs, and not just, so ELF EMFs stands for extremely low frequency EMFs. Let's talk a little bit about what EMFs are first, actually. So electromagnetic radiation is just a form of energy, and it spans from very high frequency to very low frequency. And the lowest frequency is something called, this is just for our reference purposes, the Schumann resonance. It is a natural occurring electromagnetic phenomenon in the Earth, and it's basically, it gets created when lightning strikes, and then that wave bounces between the surface of the Earth and the ionosphere. And so it's roughly like 7 hertz or something like that. So 7 cycles per second, which is the speed of light going around the Earth or something like, anyway, like,
sure, yeah.
Somebody can fact check me on that, but that's about as low as it gets. And interestingly, that coincides with our brainwave, like alpha wave, delta wave stuff. Like, you can look, it's interesting. People believe that we're actually evolved to be attuned to that frequency.
That's wild.
Isn't that wild? Yeah. And so then on the other end, you have X-rays and gamma rays, which are these very high power, intense, like nuclear weapon kind of stuff. Like, but they get emitted from the sun and other solar objects. And right in the middle, you have light. And light, as we all know, you look at a rainbow, when light is shining through water drops, it gets split into the 7 different colors. On one end is red, on the other end is violet. And right past violet is ultraviolet light. And that is the first type of radiation that we consider ionizing radiation.
Okay.
Ionizing radiation means that the radiation can actually knock an electron out of an atom and cause a chemical reaction.
Wow.
And so that's why X-rays are so damaging.
Okay.
Okay. So everybody knows when you get an X-ray, you put that big apron on, the lead apron. That's to block the ionizing radiation.
Right.
Yeah. And so on the other end, just past red is infrared, which we commonly experience as heat, because what infrared does is it vibrates molecules inside our cells. It creates friction, which produces heat. That side is considered non-ionizing radiation. And traditionally it's been, I don't want to say believed because there's so much research out there, but the narrative has been that non-ionizing radiation is only harmful if it's powerful enough to heat your tissues. And so when you have a cell phone, you can look, and usually in the phone itself, it says it has something called a SAR rating. And I don't remember what SAR stands for, but basically what they do is they take like a plastic or rubber head and they fill it with water and they put the cell phone up to it and they measure the heating. specific absorption rate. So
yeah, I just saw that. Yep.
Yeah. So it's about the tissues absorbing the heat from the electromagnetic radiation. And as long as it's under a certain value, then it's like, okay, it's fine. It won't cause any harm. Though I will say that other countries have lower thresholds for the SAR rating. And some recent iPhone, I think it was maybe the 16 or something, was not initially allowed to be sold in France because it was too high.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And before you continue down this road, I've read a study that some school children did that, and stop me if this doesn't sound familiar or if it's not connected, but I remember that these kids experimented by placing plants close to different like cell phones, and I forget some of the other things they were testing it. And I mean, electronic stuff is bad news. I mean, just common sense, right? I mean, just this stuff is leaking energy, and so you just play it. This is me talking. Play it safe and try to keep this stuff as far away from you as possible, because it just stands to reason that, and you can, like you said, you can feel this stuff. I have a damn smart meter that I absolutely hate that it's attached to my house.
Yeah.
But yet, and thankfully, it is far away from anybody's headspace, where they sleep in this house, and you have to really go out of your way to be anywhere near it for more than just a few seconds at a time. But I walk by that thing and you hear that hum, and I just don't like it.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that. Because, well, first of all, I want to say, just like your kind of gut instinct that it's not right. Yeah. I think a lot of people are kind of waking up. Like, people have always kind of known that, but like we're so distracted and enamored with our devices that we just forget.
This thing goes nuts next to it, And I will say, and then I'll shut up and let you talk. Yeah. But there is the a thermal. I don't know exactly what it's called, but it blocks the electromagnetic radiation. And if I set that over the top of the smart meter and then hold the EMF guy on the other side of it, it shuts up. If I take it away, it goes nuts. Yeah. And I realize that, and I've done enough reading on this. I realize that the next thing I'm going to say here is probably not harmful. It's a different kind of electromagnetic pulse, but at the wall between the master bedroom headboard and the other side of the wall is our HVAC units outside. Now, it only took me 10 years to process this thought. And again, I don't know that it's the same radiation, or I'm sorry, that's the wrong word, but the same emissions that the smart meter is doing. But the fact that this gizmo goes off when I hold it up against the wall next to that HVAC unit, just to play it safe, behind the picture that's hanging on the wall is one of those EMF, repulse blankets. Yeah. Just to put between the headboard and the HVAC units. Again, these are probably two different things completely, but I just want to play it safe. All right, I'm done.
Yeah. Well, I do want to say, yes, they're different things, but ultimately it's different versions of the same thing. So the question is, okay, where does it exist on that spectrum of non-ionizing radiation? Is it lower frequency? Is it higher frequency? And then it's called electromagnetic radiation. So it has an electrical component and a magnetic component. The magnetic component tends to travel farther. So are you just, and like the way that wiring works, it's really easy to block the electric component, but sometimes, especially with old knob and tube kind of wiring, magnetic fields don't get blocked. And so it's very complicated theory. And there's people, like, I do professionally work with this stuff. We can get into it later if you want to get more into specifics about that stuff. But I think you're doing the right thing. And
I'd rather play it smart. Just even if I'm going to get mocked, I don't care. Well, I just want to
look at me, man. I'm getting mocked by tens of millions of people around the world. It doesn't matter. It's like, I've done my research. I don't feel like I'm sticking my neck out here because I believe in it, and
and it takes somebody, everything, all knowledge. It starts with someone who isn't afraid to explore possibilities of something, and we don't have all the answers. We don't know what causes any number of cancers that plague our society. So you know what? If it's my life, I'm going to play it safe. I don't care what other people say.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to hear you say that, because like I don't have all the answers. I could be wrong. But the thing is, nobody has all the answers, and we're doing our best, and we're like, this is something that merits looking into. Yep. And the things that we can do to mitigate it against it are non-risk. They're like low risk to no risk, and they're going to be beneficial even if that thing isn't a harm. So then why not just do it? Why so much pushback? And yeah, we can get into that later. But I just think like the basic, like it's kind of like the precautionary principle. Like we, either we evolved in this environment or we were created by a God, like whatever your beliefs are. I don't want to be dogmatic about anything, but it's a certain environment that we came to exist in that was a very limited set of electromagnetic frequencies, from the Schumann resonance to light, infrared, ultraviolet, and some scattering of radio waves and very slight amounts of X-rays and stuff that make their way through the atmosphere. It's called the atmospheric window. And that's all we were exposed to until really, I think the first, electricity was produced in late 1800s. And before that, we had the telegraph. That was probably, I think that was first. I don't know. Actually, don't quote me on that. But one of those two was the first thing. And you look back at the history and like the illness that was created by the first telegraph operators, and then the first radio, the people that invented radio, and the people that invented radar, and so on and so forth. They all had massive health issues.
I have never heard that, Peter.
Oh yeah, it's fascinating. There's actually a book called The Invisible Rainbow. Beautiful, beautiful book by this man named Arthur Furstenberg, who tragically died last year. Because right now, if he was alive right now to see this happening, it would have validated his existence. He became electro hypersensitive and wound up hiding in a house in New Mexico because society made him sick.
Wait a minute. You just described the brother in Better Call Saul.
That's right.
In fact, you got it down to New Mexico as well.
Oh my God, I didn't even make that connection.
I wonder if that was on purpose. I wouldn't put it past Vince. What's his name?
Somebody who knows a writer needs to.
What was the name of this individual you said that came up with this?
Arthur Furstenberg.
Okay.
And the book is called The Invisible Rainbow. I think I might have called it something else. The Invisible Rainbow. And it's basically the history of electromagnetic radiation and the health effects on humans and animals too, actually. There's a whole section on animals and the environment. Fascinating stuff. But yeah, he breaks down like Marconi, who I believe is the inventor of the radio. I think he had something like 8 heart attacks.
Holy crap!
Yeah, Nikola Tesla, who we all know as, the inventor of AC electricity, he had serious health problems. I don't remember what they were. It was like diabetes or something.
I've got a morbid thought, and I'll never be able to retrace these steps. But I mean, I've been in radio since I was in high school, and I just wonder if the station engineers at all these places are just salt of the earth guys, just normal, laid back, chill guys that have a brain for this kind of stuff. And I hesitate to do this, but I wonder if I did a little research, if I could really remember all of the engineers in my past. I just wonder how they ended up passing away. Maybe it was I don't know. There might be something there, but based on what you just told me, I had never even thought of that, and that is fascinating, man.
That's a good question because, if you're in the station and there's a big antenna there,
yes,
you could. I've never measured.
They spend their time in the tiny room. In fact, in one place it's called the fishbowl because it's got windows all on the side, but inside it is all this equipment. Hell, as I sit here having this conversation with you, I think of all of the equipment at my day job over at the Blaze, and I'm just trying to think if anybody sits close to that on the other side of the wall. I don't think so. No, the Blaze, you're fine over at the Blaze. no, but I just wonder, man. That's incredible to think about.
Yeah, I think you would love this book. It'd give you we can maybe do another episode just about that stuff later.
Yes, please.
It's interesting. So I think we should use this as a time to like transition into the theory, because everything you're saying, like, you're like, I wonder what the health problems might be. And that's a whole rabbit hole in itself. So
yeah,
let's talk about, I did see a comment from someone that was saying something about what kind of level of detail they might want, or maybe I don't actually, I didn't, it popped up. Let's see. Oh, wow. There's lots of comments.
Yeah, like in fact, I don't know how far off the trail you want to go here, but I just thought that was interesting here. 5G, 6G. My gosh, that's a whole nother conversation, is it not?
We can talk about that later.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's unfortunate that 5G got kind of associated with the whole QAnon thing and stuff.
Oh, right.
I think it's less. We'll go into it later, but I tend to just talk about millimeter wave and C-band. Okay. Because it's more of a neutral thing. It's just electromagnetic radiation. But yeah, let's see. So let's talk about the mechanisms. And I can, if I'm going into it and people want more detail or less detail, they can say. I'm going to give kind of like a mid-level explanation. So in order to understand how this affects our health, you kind of have to understand what the mitochondria is. And so mitochondria is basically, if you've ever taken a high school anatomy class, you learned that it was the powerhouse of the cell. It gives our cells energy. And the way it does it is there's something called the electron transport chain. And it shuttles electrons through respiratory proteins. And at the end of the cycle, those electrons are turned into water, ATP, and free radicals. And ATP is considered the source of energy. Now, that story it's deeper than that, but that's the level that I would like to keep it at for our conversation. So whenever you have, this is just very basic physics, the movement of the electrons create their own electromagnetic field. And actually, before I go there, let me say something. This is completely non-controversial. There's something called oxidative stress. And oxidative stress occurs when there's dysfunction in the mitochondria and you start losing electrons, and they create more free radicals and less water and less ATP. So free radicals, which we all actually, the technical term is radical oxygen species, but free radicals is a more common term, leads to oxidative stress, and oxidative stress damages tissues. And it can damage the cells, it can damage the mitochondria themselves, it can damage your DNA, so on and so forth. This is not controversial in scientific literature. Just in general, oxidative stress contributes to chronic disease. So back to the mitochondria, we've got the electrons getting ferried across the inner mitochondrial membrane, and there's this like chute that carries them, and it's very narrow, like it's 5 nanometers. A nanometer is like a billionth of a millimeter. I don't know. It's very small. Yeah. And so per square inch, like if you do relatively speaking, that the strength of that electron transport chain is comparable to a bolt of lightning, because you're at the scale that it is. It's a very tiny scale. For that tiny scale, it's a very strong field. Now, in absolute terms, it's considered a weak field. And in absolute terms, non-ionizing radiation from man-made sources is also considered weak. But that doesn't mean they can't have an effect on this field. So as I mentioned earlier, the electrons moving across the membrane create their own magnetic field, electromagnetic field. And there was a physicist in the late 1800s named Maxwell, and Maxwell's equations, this is just laws of physics, classical physics, state that whenever you superimpose one electromagnetic field over another one, you modify them. So basically you've got this high frequency electromagnetic field across the mitochondria moving, and then you superimpose an external field from the magnetic field. And I like to think, I wrote about this in my essay, think about it as if you drop a pebble in a pond and you get some tight little ripples. and then a boat comes by and sends waves coming through. So when the waves come through, when you're at the bottom of the wave, those ripples from the pebble are kind of compressed, and then at the crest of the wave, they're kind of expanded. Mm-hmm. So you're changing that wave, and what that does is it causes the electron transport chain to lose more electrons. And when you lose electrons, you get more free radicals, less water, less ATP. So that's where oxidative stress comes from when you're talking about the imposition of man-made EMFs on human biology. But it gets a little bit deeper there, because that water in traditional biochemistry was always considered a byproduct, but it's actually a special kind of water. It's not just like tap water. It's called easy water, and it's a structured form of water that is it's kind of halfway between water and ice. It's a gel. So with ice, you have water that is structured in a grid pattern. And so with this easy gelled water, it's actually in layers. So they can shift side, like ice is structured, like it's a full crystal. These can shift back and forth, but it doesn't flow like water. And this water is most of the hydration in our body. We need to drink water, obviously, but most of our hydration comes from the water that is created by our mitochondria. And collagen, so we're going to jump forward just a little bit here. Collagen, which is what makes up soft tissue, it makes up tendon, I believe, is actually the most collagen dense tissue in the human body. Skin has a lot, bone has it, the fascia has it, but tendon in particular is very dense in collagen. And collagen is roughly 60 to 70% water by weight, but by molecular count, it's like 99.6, 99.7. So it needs a lot of water, and the water in the tendon is actually structural. It's not just hydrating. It's a key component in the structure of the collagen.
I just started taking collagen pills. I mean, was that a good move, or?
I would have to see the pills themselves. Like to the extent that I ever do that, it's from collagen peptides that you get. Like
that's what.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I this is not medical advice.
Yeah.
I get my collagen. I eat a ton of seafood. Okay. And I eat beef with like lots of connective tissue. You make stews and stuff. You get bones. That's where I tend to get my collagen from. Okay. But it's definitely fine to get it from supplements. Like, not medical advice, but like ask your doctor, and you can buy it on the grocery store shelves. Just make sure it's like organic and not like full of antibiotics and stuff, because that stuff is concentrated. Anytime I'm not like I know I'm in the wellness world, but I'm like, I don't know if you saw me on Part of My Take, like I love In-N-Out Burger, like McDonald's fries. I don't care. Like we're all just living our lives, doing our best, right?
That's right. Okay, so you talked about how the human body has got a lot of water in it. It's predominantly from the mitochondria. I knew I was going to screw up trying to pronounce that. So how are those disrupted externally?
Can you say? Oh, well, so that's a good question. EMFs, like I said, there's a spectrum, right? And some are longer, like higher energy. Some are lower energy. There's a trade-off between the amount of energy. The higher energy it is, the less it can penetrate into the tissues. The lower energy is, the deeper it can penetrate into the tissue. So there's, like you were saying, like you're like, I'm not sure if it's the same type of radiation. It's all the same thing, but like, there's different factors that are involved. So magnetic fields are very low energy, but my understanding is they go straight through your body. It's very hard to block a magnetic field. You can't really shield against magnetic fields without creating a complete Faraday cage around.
I was just about to say, I mean, let's go back to Better Call Saul and the brother for a second here. I mean, you could live your entire life by candlelight and wrapped in one of these reflective blankets. Yeah. I mean, that's no way to live.
It's not.
But at the same time, I think if I understood what you just said, not everything that is giving off energy, such as these lights in this room, and there's some people that will say that they are harmful, but it's everything has a degree, right? A trade-off.
Yeah.
I would suspect that light, you need the light. It's going to make it so that you can see in a room. It is giving off, I'm sure, some level of harm, but I'm not holding it up to my face. It's not, on my person 24/7. It's across the room. It's hanging from the ceiling. And plus, it's not letting off nearly the same thing that damn smart meter is doing out there.
Well, so I actually have to push back a little bit here.
Oh, no. Shit.
What kind of light bulbs do you have?
I'm afraid to answer, Peter. Let's see here.
Is it an LED or a compact
LED,
fluorescent?
2 LED light fixtures. Actually, gosh, you know what? Now that I think about it, most of these are LEDs.
Yeah. So I'm going to tell you that I actually think the LEDs are more harmful than your smart meter.
Time out. We got to stop there. I made a big deal many years ago about how when I knew that the light bulbs were going to be banned, incandescents, I ended up with a garage full of old school light bulbs.
Yeah.
But I'm a miser. Okay? So when I discovered that the LED cost and the frequency of how often I would have to change those bulbs, I said to and the energy that they were using, I said, holy crap, dude, I'm changing every bulb in my house to that. Which I did probably, I don't know, 8-9 years ago. So ever since then, I have had exclusively, and I'd say 90% of the bulbs in this house now are LED.
Yeah.
And now I'm afraid that Peter is about to destroy the way I think about them.
Yeah, I'm sorry to have to do that. I love that you stored the incandescents though, because those things, and you can still buy them. There's unless you live in California, you can't buy them in California. But
then I started giving them away, Peter, because I fell in love with LEDs. I gave away an entire box of I forget which one it was, but I had a 60, a 75, and 100. And one of those, some guy was remodeling something. I was like, hell, just take the damn box.
Just take it. Yeah. I feel you. I did the same thing. When LEDs got to a certain price, I was like, oh, I'll just replace all my light bulbs and they'll pay for themselves in a year,
Yes.
Reduce energy usage. And I didn't even think about it.
Okay, so what am I doing to myself? What have I been doing for a decade to my family, Peter?
Yeah, so the thing with light is it's the frequency and the timing. So if you're sitting inside during the day with your lights on, it's not as bad because
it's kind of diffused from the sunlight coming in, right?
Well, that helps, but it's more about your body has a circadian rhythm and it expects certain light frequencies at different times.
Wow. And
so during the daytime, it expects, so like I mentioned that you have the rainbow, there's violet on one side and red on the other. Blue frequency is kind of the key frequency that we talk about when it comes to circadian rhythm. That's what sets the circadian rhythm. Is if you go camping and you don't let's say you only have fire and a lantern maybe, and otherwise you're just going with the light of the sun. The sun comes up and it goes from very low blue content to spiking very high in blue content, and that tells the clock in your brain that it's time to wake up, and it initiates some hormone cascades and so on and so forth. And this is a bit of a tangent, so we can go into more.
No, but you talked about this.
I did.
Yeah, so
I talked about it, and actually, what I said was, I think this is foundational, and this is actually possibly the biggest problem, and that the EMFs from the substation are the straw that broke the camel's back, because all the teams are dealing with the circadian disruption, and only the Niners are dealing with this particular EMF. So I'm in my thought, the circadian stuff just sets the foundation for the problems, and then the EMF stuff comes on top of that. And it's that was just a little bit too much, because people were joking, one of the 49ers was watching a Warriors game, and one of the players snapped his tendon, and it's oh, the substation got him even at the basketball, and it's it's turned into a meme now, but
but you know what though, that at least keeps it in people's consciousness.
It's amazing.
And if you're just tuning in, we're talking with Peter Cowan, And he's got this fascinating theory on why the San Francisco 49ers football team far and away has a more frequency of injuries than the rest of their NFL peers. And there's a interesting little substation, electric company substation there right next to their practice facility. And so that's what we're exploring here on the deep dive today. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's all good. So yeah, I actually believe that the light stuff is a bigger factor. And so as I was saying, the blue from the sunrise kind of sets your internal clock. Morning sunlight in general, getting bright, full spectrum morning sunlight from the sun, like window has to be open, because the window, especially if you've got those low E energy efficient windows, is going to block a lot of the important rays. Yeah. It's going to set your clock. And then when the sun goes down at night and you're at home and you're like got your LEDs on and they're like 5,000 K because it's like you like it to be bright and gives you energy and stuff. Well, why is it giving you energy? Because it's tricking your brain into thinking it's morning and it's pumping out those same hormones, but it's nighttime and your body needs to be kind of going into repair mode. And so there is a reciprocal relationship between cortisol and melatonin. Cortisol is the energy hormone, and that gets pumped out in the morning. Melatonin it's called like the hormone of darkness, but it's also a very important repair hormone that cleans up those free radicals that I was talking about. So if you're blasting yourself with your LEDs and your devices until midnight and you go to bed and you get up and the sun's not up and you turn your LEDs on, and you're really disrupting your circadian rhythm. And is that time out?
That's a timeout. Wait a minute. What if your schedule's like mine and you wake up at 3 a.m. and you go to bed before it's dark? Now what am I doing? Nothing good.
Nothing good. Yeah. But there's things you can do to take care of yourself. I'm not a fear monger, and I'm not like, you go on Instagram and you're like, this one thing is going to kill you and this one thing is going to save you. That's not me. I'm like, you know what? This is a modern world that we live in, and these are the things that we face, and there's things we can do about it. So, and I think fear is the worst of all the killers, of all the stressors. Fear, I think, is the worst.
Oh, so I don't need to go and change out all of my LEDs, or I should?
I would like you to, but I don't want you to like all of a sudden just be stressing about it. Like, yeah. So so I just wanted to go into that just because it's a very important factor. And just because of the way social media works, like people latched on to the EMF thing and the substation thing and touched nothing else. And that's just how it goes. But, every team, every sport is dealing with more tendon, soft tissue injuries. It's rampant across all the leagues of every professional sport. And probably, I don't know. I don't follow high school sports, but college and high school, you got to look at them too. And I'm actually talking to Aaron Schatz and seeing if we can get some data about like night games versus day games and stuff. But
you know who would actually, and I don't have a contact, even though I'm a lifelong Atlanta Braves fan. John Smoltz might be someone that I wish you guys could meet, because
I'll hit him up.
Okay. Oh, you've got a contact? Do it.
No, but I just wrote Aaron Schatz on Twitter, and he gave me his email.
Okay. So, very cool. Because the reason I bring up John Smoltz is because I have heard him time and time again lament how young pitchers coming up, how he describes it is a lot more eloquent than I am, but it's a different pitching style now that's putting pressure on developing arms that are still growing as opposed to adult males. These kids are growing up. And so what I'm getting at is John Smoltz strikes me as someone who is very receptive to a message like what you're bringing today, based on his background. He was the first professional athlete to have a sports psychologist. In 1991 Atlanta Braves, he started off 2-13 at the All-Star break and ended up finishing, I think, at 500 or above. I forget exactly what it was, but it ended up being very important down the stretch for the Braves. So he is receptive, I think, speaking for John Smoltz, the Hall of Fame pitcher, to this kind of hypothesis, I think. And I think that because he's looking for answers as to why there are so many injuries in professional baseball now, that I think that just sitting here listening to you and having heard him talk about that subject in the past, I just feel like there's some knowledge that could be joined here between the two of you gentlemen on limiting so many injuries in professional sports.
Yeah, it's interesting when you said John Smoltz, it didn't really register in my mind. I remember him now. Like he was kind of a legendary pitcher for the Braves.
Yeah, and now he is the national color analyst for Fox Sports Baseball.
Okay, so it may be harder for me to get his number, but
yeah, I'm gonna try as well. I'm sending him this, and I'm gonna put the timestamp on here, and I'm gonna try to get this message to him along with your Substack, sir.
Yeah, definitely. I just think in general, like, I think the sports organizations, like they care about health in a way that we don't have to necessarily, because they're players, you know, they're a commodity. And so they're a lot more open to this kind of forward thinking stuff. And even if they won't say it publicly, they will do it privately. So I think almost for me personally, like it's been a mixed blessing getting all this exposure, because now I've been labeled a conspiracy theorist. It's like people are afraid to touch me.
Yeah.
But the issue has gotten so much exposure, and that I wasn't actually in this for myself. I was, like I said, I was doing it to scratch an itch, had no idea it was going to get exposure. And so anything that comes to me, which so far is nothing other than getting to do cool interviews, is bonus. But like the issue getting exposure is great. And unfortunately, people are like, because I'm a conspiracy theorist, they're not reaching out to me, and they're reaching out to other people. And those other people are saying, well, no, this is not an issue, because
I think the tide is turning, though.
I
truly think so. I was actually talking with someone today, and what I'm about to say here is not meant to sound political, but we were talking about the COVID era, 2020 and 2021, and I guess where we concluded, and the point that I'm trying to make here is that I think the reason you have Health and Human Services Secretary Robert Kennedy is because so many people know that they were duped in 2020 and 2021. And so it opened up eyes. We were told, trust the science, trust the science. And instead, so many people had their lives turned upside down by, I won't even call it pseudoscience. It was quackery, in my opinion. But I think that if anything good came from that, it was people looking at their health choices and taking an overall look, not just at vaccines, but at everything. And now people are more susceptible to messages like a Robert Kennedy have put forward that catapulted him into the HHS secretary role, that I contend that without the COVID era and the nonsense going on around that, you would have never gotten someone like that in that kind of office.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. And like, it's interesting though, because I do agree with you about like people's eyes getting opened and just kind of taking their health more into their own hands, because my journey was like, I dealt with chronic illness for most of my life. Well, from a teenager until about age 48. So before COVID, I was really deep in this world of like, you know, trying to discover how to improve my health. And it was very fringe. Like I wouldn't talk to any of my friends about it, because they're just like, what's that weird, like blue light, what EMFs? Like, what are you crazy?
Right. And I would have been there with you. I would have been with your buddies 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But right now, let me show you this, Peter. Right now, and I talk about this on Twitter a lot, and I love my audience, and they know exactly what I'm about to do. This is a red light here that's right awesome. Here. Red light therapy.
Yeah.
I wholeheartedly endorse red light therapy 100%. Because I have seen it work on me in so many ways. And so it's not fringe anymore for me and for so many other people, Peter.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, because like I would say like a large percentage of my business recently was just selling red light panels to women in their 30s plus who are like frustrated with wrinkles in their or whatever, like those feet or whatever. Like it's really catching on. And and like you said, like 10 years ago, it's like, what the hell are you talking about? And then COVID, like there were some things that were said, regardless of what you're feeling about politics or whatever, there were some things that were said that were just objectively proven wrong.
Yes. And
completely contradicted by what the actual science said over and over again. And it's interesting that I feel like we're seeing a similar dynamic in a kind of a microcosm of that dynamic with this EMF story, in that the mainstream press is like, oh, this has been debunked, is not actually engaging with the argument.
Yes.
And then all the fans and people with stakeholders, people with skin in the game are like, I feel like there's something to this.
Right.
Like I heard there's a show called Bussin' with the Boys.
Yeah.
And they tagged me. And it was like such an honor. And the thing is, there's a clip of the show, and they're talking, and they're like, he's one of the guys like trying to explain the science. He's like, you know what? I'm going to sound like an idiot if I try to explain the science. He says, I don't know the science. I just know it's bad.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. And like, people would not have said that even like a year or two ago. You know?
I mean, that's just a feeling you get when you walk by the smart meter. Something's off there.
Something's off.
Something's off. And trust your gut. Every time you need to trust your gut, because as we have this is the thing. If I read something in a news article, or I hear someone say, quote, that's been debunked, well, then that is like telling me as a kid that I can't go and do such and such, because now I'm more incentivized to go and study this and find out, why is this debunked?
Yeah.
I mean, because and that is the antithesis of science.
Yep.
Science is never debunked. We're constantly learning.
Yep. Actually, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I don't know if you saw, I posted on X today that I am doing a partnership with this company called Research Hub.
Oh, no.
And they are they're a tech company that I believe they have their own cryptocurrency, and they use the currency itself to fundraise peer-reviewed scientific studies.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah. And so we're partnering. And when I say partnering, I'm just promoting, and hopefully going to get to byline a study with someone. And so we're specifically fundraising to study the EMF injury issue.
Okay.
And so, maybe at the end you can put a link to that in your show.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, your handle, if people want to follow you, is @living_energy, @living_energy. But yes, we'll definitely put that out there.
And it's open to anybody. You don't have to be a scientist. You have to have an idea, and they can find someone to do the science with you. So it's really like, I'm excited about that so much, because I feel like the peer review process is itself politicized.
Yeah.
There's actually one of my heroes, his name is Dr. Andrew Marino. He wrote a book called, you wouldn't know him. He wrote a book called Going Somewhere. And he was a biophysicist who worked with a doctor named Dr. Robert O. Becker, who basically discovered that the body is electrical, and that we have semiconductors in our body, and that tissues emit light, and like all this crazy stuff. And he wrote a book about their work, and a big piece of that was fighting the high voltage electric lines that were going through New York State at the time. And so the book is nominally an autobiography, but what it's really about is how the scientific process is captured by industry, and you don't get pure science, you get what industry wants, and government. I don't want to, but it's the whole thing. And so this research hub is like a promising way, like people who are interested in this and like a study can buy the coin, and then they'll make money when if the results of the studies turn out to confirm, then the coin goes up with it. So I don't want to
make sure that you text me or email me this the link to this, so that I have that specifically, and I'll make sure to retweet that out. And just the whole electricity thing you just mentioned, not to get you too far off the track here, but I've talked ad nauseum here about my weird leg pain on my left leg, and I've been to every kind of doctor, and they actually hooked me up to a thing where you could, I don't even remember what it was, but it's like it picked up electricity in the leg, like you could hear the activity. It was the strangest thing, but there was no solution. And there was no solution until this guy, red light therapy. And I have one of these that wraps around my leg, and I've tweeted about this in the last several months, just wrapping that around my leg for about 90 minutes, and my leg is good to go for several days and then I need to put it back around. And so I just want to point that out. I don't know the the mechanisms involved. I don't know any of it. I just know that it works. And another electricity thing went to a it wasn't, there was acupuncture involved, but before you do the acupuncture, you sit there with a almost like a wet metal type thing in your hands or something. Anyway, the lady goes through and she's measuring stuff, and you're holding it and all this everything, and she says, "What's going on with your gallbladder?" She's like, I'm not getting a reading of this. Now, I want to preface this by saying they have no idea that in 2002, my gallbladder had been removed. Wow. Somehow this lady knew through moistened metal sensors that I was holding.
Wow.
And some reading told her that there was no gallbladder signal. And this stuff blows my mind. And I have a guest coming up about 6 weeks from now who is in this realm that's going to blow our minds even more on this stuff. There is so much we don't know, and it's offensive when people tell me and tell us that they do.
I totally agree with you. And like, I hope you can find out what that machine was, because I'd love to know more about it.
Yeah, I will find it. I think it's standard issue at most acupunctures, because I think what they do is, and it's the only acupuncture I've ever been to, but I think they test you and find out when they get you on the table where they should be poking you exactly based on the results of those measurements here. But I guarantee you, if you typed in moistened metal sensors held at an acupuncturist office, that would lead you to it, and I'll look for it as well.
Okay,
yeah,
cool. But I also wanted to say, because you're talking about the red light, I think it ties back into the scientific mechanisms that we were talking about very nicely. Mm-hmm. So what red light does is it stimulates production of water in your mitochondria.
Interesting.
So it basically, you got that issue where there's too many free radicals. Now you're producing, it keeps those electrons on the transport chain, and so you're producing more water and more ATP. So it's really, just to oversimplify, but I think it's useful, is disease tends to be downstream of energy production. So if you're having, let's say, if you have diabetes, it's probably a mitochondrial issue in your pancreas. And if you have depression or insomnia, it's probably a mitochondrial issue in your brain. And so we can use red light to kind of jumpstart the mitochondria and get more energy moving, so we can actually power it takes energy to run a human body. And we tend to think of energy as coming from food, but a lot of it actually comes from light. And the part of light that is most important is the red and the infrared. And that is the part of light that has been removed from all of our lighting and from inside our homes, because these new low E lights block the infrared. Because remember what I said earlier, the infrared, we experience it as heat. So they want to block the infrared so you spend less money heating or cooling your house in the summer. But now they're taking away, it's like, it would be like if you had, it's like low fat milk or something. They're taking away a key nutrient.
So am I back in your good graces with my light bulbs, knowing that I have the red light?
I feel much better about it. Much better about it.
That's awesome. That's so cool. But I mean, it's just fascinating stuff here. And there is so much that we don't know. And what I guess bugs me is that I wish that my mind had been more open to this kind of stuff 50 years ago. I'm 50 now next. Anyway, I wish when I was a young adult that my eyes were open to this stuff, as opposed to now. It feels almost like, and I know I'm not, but it feels like I'm still one of the last people to get on the train on this stuff.
I think you're right where most, like a lot of, actually, no, I think you're still on the cutting edge, honestly. Just in my experience, and in the past 2 years since I devoted my life to this stuff, I've gone from people rolling their eyes at me when I mentioned it, to people saying, "Oh yeah," if I mentioned like, "Oh yeah, my office is right by a cell phone tower, and I was thinking about getting a Faraday hat because it's like, it's weird," like,
nice.
That's a massive change. And I would say like, I think, I don't know, I'm a bit of a spiritual person, not deeply religious, but the way that my life has been mapped out over the past few years and what led me to this point. I don't want to take credit away from myself for all the effort that I put into it, but I've been working tirelessly for like a long time, and there's just been a series of coincidences that brought me to this that are just like cannot be explained just by random chance. And the fact that it touched the NFL,
the
NFL is like, it's America's game. Like, don't get me wrong, I love all the sports, but like NFL is like the last mass cultural phenomenon that we have in this country that everybody shares. All the big, like if you look at TV, like back when you're talking about growing up, like I'm the same age as you. I turned 50 this year. If you look at like the big TV shows where it like had the most viewers, it was like the last episode of MASH and like the Cosby Show and that kind of thing. That is not the case anymore because culture has been fragmented, and some people like their whatever. I don't even watch TV, so don't ask me. But like,
I'm with you.
But now it's always right at the top, like 10 of the top 20, maybe even 15 of the top 20 NFL games. And so it's like I said, I love NFL, but I haven't been watching it that much. It just, I got kind of drawn back into it. I think honestly, my heart got broken in 2002 when the Raiders lost to, who was it? Tampa Bay.
Oh, in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. And it was just like, it was a tragic game. I can handle a loss, but like their center, like, had like a mental episode.
Breakdown, yes.
Yeah. And Rich Gannon was like, he was an old school, he was like 42 or something. And he was a good quarterback when he didn't have to worry about getting rushed. But when he had to get, like, it was just, and I was like, you know what? I love this game, but not so much that I want to get my heart involved. So I kind of put some distance from it and just
did he kind of blame him for the?
No, I think they just got demolished because their offensive line was the key to their success. Like they had some really good players, but they weren't like a defensive miracle. You know, they just and he was a solid quarterback. He could really throw. He had that sidearm, and he could run, but he was also like in his 40s, and he needed the time provided by that massive offensive line. And so anyway, this is a distraction, but I broke my heart. I was like, okay, I'm going to keep my distance. And I'll watch the Super Bowl and I'll watch some games here and there. And like, I live in Oregon. And so people I know here like the Seahawks. So I'll get into the Seahawks with them. But I wasn't.
How dare you? How dare you, a 49ers fan, same division as the Seahawks? That'd be like this Falcons fan supporting the Saints. But I'll let you. I'm
more supporting my friends.
I got you. Yeah. I wanted to touch on. You had mentioned how when you talk to people now that their reaction is different than it would have been 5, 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
My followers on Twitter know the saga of Tanner, the dog over here, who. Yes, when I say your name, you look at me, and I appreciate that. But he's got this ridiculous lump, and I won't waste your time with it. But just yesterday, I was having a conversation with the vet, and it was a very thorough conversation about next steps with this thing. And when I mentioned applying DMSO and red light therapy, this wasn't something. She was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I understand." Like there was no judgment whatsoever, and I hesitated to even bring it up, but when I did, it was like, you're among friends. I get this. She may use that stuff herself, and I kind of picked up on at least the red light stuff. It really sounded like she was very familiar with that and wasn't poo-pooing that idea whatsoever. So there is definitely a sea change underway with the mindset of people in that regard. Where do you want to go next on this? Somebody asked, by the way, Peter, about fluorescent lights. What is
I think fluorescent are actually the worst of all of them.
That's something we've heard. That's one of the earliest things we heard about that was in our environment causing damage, right?
Yeah. It's unbelievable that they were allowed to be like a common, like for like energy savings. Like they're filled with mercury, and then the light spectrum itself is this alien spectrum. It doesn't resemble anything that you can imagine. At least LEDs, like you look and you're like, okay, that's a normal distribution of light, except for it's got a big high spike of blue light, and then it cuts out all of the infrared, which is a problem. Don't get me wrong, it's a problem, but you look at fluorescent as like, it just looks like poison if you look at that spectrum. It's crazy. So yeah, fluorescent lights are no good. Sorry.
No, you're good. I'm looking over your stuff here. Oh, the Moscow signal.
Ah.
I want you to talk about that. That's one of the things that you and I emailed that I was like, I've got to ask you about this.
Yes. The Moscow signal. So how do we begin? So
let's take us back to the Cold War.
Yeah, let's go back to the Cold War. I think the interesting thing is how we got to these regulations that we got to. And what happened was when radar operators, I think during World War II or post World War II, were burning themselves, basically, very high power. And there's some getting cataracts and other things that like people in their 30s and maybe even younger shouldn't be getting. And so there was some research done on this stuff, and some science, I don't know who the scientist was, but he found a threshold where tissues are heated, basically. And that became kind of like the standard. As long as we're not getting to this tissue heating threshold, it's safe. And so we in the West built our standards around and our regulations around this idea. Whereas in Russia, they had taken a different approach, and they had been studying low-level EMFs, and they had been noticing immune effects and nervous system effects from these low-level EMFs. And so I think their standards are like maybe even like 100,000 times lower than ours. It's
wow.
It's drastic.
Wow.
So what they did is, we're in the Cold War, and the United States says, well, it's like, what's the number? Like 100,000 microwatts per centimeter squared or something like that, or per meter. I don't know the exact number. Like we could look it up, but no, I think it's like 10 million actually. It's like 10 million microwatts per centimeter square. I think that's the number. And what the Russians were pointing at, they decided that they would point microwave at the embassy, and it was roughly 50,000 microwatts per centimeter squared, which is relatively speaking very low. And it would pulse up to above 100,000 here and there, but for the most part, it was between 50 and 100,000. And it went on, I think, for decades. It's in the article if people are curious.
Yeah, I'm looking for that.
But it wasn't discovered until 1976. And at the time it was discovered, I believe they thought it was some sort of spying device or secret weapon. So they wound up covering all the walls with tinfoil and stuff. But what happened was later in the 80s, several high-profile workers from the embassy came down with leukemia. And Henry Kissinger was the Secretary of State at the time, and nobody ever acknowledged the cause and effect. But the Russians knew what they were doing. They specifically picked a level that was much lower than the levels that we use as our cutoff, but higher than what they believed was a level that would, when long-term direct exposure was applied, would cause issues.
I mean, don't even get me started on the hypothesis of the Havana syndrome too.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because that is, it's another microwave frequency, I believe. I haven't dug too deeply into that one. Like, I started doing research on it, and you can go back into papers that are published by, I don't remember the exact name, but there's all these journals that are affiliated with like Defense Department and other official governmental bodies. And you can see this research they were doing about millimeter wave technology being used as weapons. And I mentioned Robert Becker earlier. He's got a book called The Body Electric, and it's about his work discovering how bioelectrical signals work within the human body. And it's pretty dense and it's hard to understand, but there's one chapter towards the end that's probably a good 50 pages that's all about the research that's been done about electromagnetism and health. And he wrote that in the 80s, so it's a little bit dated, but one of the things that he does is he goes through government programs that looked into this stuff. And specifically, there's one that probably, like, I don't know your listener base, but MK Ultra, does that ring a bell? Yeah. So
We've done, for those that missed the show about 2 months ago, scroll back and find that. It was fascinating with the MK Ultra victim that we had on.
oh wow,
Yeah.
So I'm not, again, like I'm not deep into this stuff, but I read that book, and I know like a lot of what we know, like is commonly known about MK Ultra, is how they, they dosed whole neighborhoods of St. Louis
Yes.
with LSD. And then my favorite one was in San Francisco, where they gave some men LSD and sent them to brothels. That's an interesting government study. But
yeah,
what Becker talks about is the research that was done around microwaves, and there's a specific doctor, I think his name is Carlos E. Delgado. He's a Spanish researcher, and he was experimenting with mind control using electromagnetism. And his work, he was a Spaniard, so he was experimenting with bulls, like in the what's it called, the
Matador.
Matador stuff. And he discovered that if he hooked an electrode to the brain of a bull, he could get it to just stop in its tracks. And then he thought, okay, I can do this with direct electricity. Can I do it with electromagnetic radiation? And he was able to. And he wrote a book about it. You can order it on Amazon. It's just been memory hold. But this is research that we were doing. And it's so fascinating to me that you got all these people that are into MK Ultra right now, but they know about the LSD and the mind control, and they don't know about the electromagnetism and the mind control. So when I hear people talking about Havana syndrome and these phantom effects, and then I hear like the mainstream media saying, "Oh, this is a conspiracy theory," I'm like, that's a familiar pattern there. Like, but it's not anything that I've dug into, and honestly, I'm not going to, because I'm really interested. I'm not even an activist. I just want people to be healthy who want to be healthy. Yeah. And I think there's millions of people out there that are just happy to just kind of deteriorate and whatever. Like, I'm not even trying to say people have to be healthy, but I think the people that want to be healthy should be able to have the tools to be healthy. And when I first got into this, I was like, I want to help the Niners be healthy. That was my only goal. And it seems like something's going to happen with that. I'm not going to maybe get to be part of it, unfortunately. I thought maybe I'd get a client or get a consulting gig or something, because I got a friend who knows the owners. But
what?
I do, yeah. But
they haven't called you?
I think it got too much exposure in, and like I'm an untouchable right now. So maybe in the off season, but
you need to do a presentation in front of the owners is what you need to do.
I would like to, but I'm not pressing, and whatever happens will happen. And again, it's not about me; it's much bigger than me. So yeah, but I'm glad you brought that up, because that's an interesting subject.
Yeah. So what are some thoughts around your Substack? And your thoughts about these injuries that are befalling the San Francisco 49ers. Are there things that you want to discuss about this that we haven't gotten to yet? And I would encourage everyone to and let me give that out again. It's your Twitter handle, because all of the bio links, right, are in your profile there.
Yep.
On X, you're at living_energy, at living_energy. And and your Substack is in your bio.
It is. I've got a link tree.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, link tree.
I've got all my links in there. Find all my social media. You can find my email address, whatever. I'm pretty easy to get in touch with.
I mean, I'm looking right now, Peter, at it's in the this is part 3, where you break down. And I love pictures, because they actually explain a lot. There's a lot of graphics and stuff in here, but you've got your cross references here, and the sources that people could look and do their own research here. It's not like you just sat down and just started typing.
No, actually, This is a good time to go back to the MCAS POTS stuff that we were talking about earlier.
Right.
I did not actually just sat down and start typing. I had clients who were suffering from MCAS, POTS, and EDS. And so I thought, let's figure out, like, I did some, you can go to Google Trends and you can see, like, what's the incident rate of this issue over the past 25 years. And for all 3 of them, I noticed like a boop, 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 and then a spike, and I'm like, but I was looking into the research, and so these things happen together. And the traditional belief, if you go to like the medical professionals who specialize in this stuff, they will tell you that EDS is a genetic disease. It's Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and it's a form of hyperflexibility, and it can also affect the blood vessels. So there's different varieties of it, but the strictly hereditable variety is actually very rare. So I thought, how can it be that this hereditary disease is picking up so much? And so their theory is that the hyperflexibility leads to mast cell issues. Like, it's very dense. I'm not going to go into that, but I looked at the incidence going up and the fact that there's just not a massive amount of people being born with this hereditary disease all of a sudden in a nice linear or almost like exponential rise. And so I started looking into MCAS, which stands for mast cell activation syndrome, and POTS, which stands for postural orthopedic tachycardia syndrome. And so that, if you've ever like been sitting on the ground and you stand up and you're going to get a head rush and you get foggy vision, that's because your blood pressure drops and your heart needs to beat faster to get the blood to your head. And so that can happen to all of us, but in people with POTS, it becomes endemic, and they'll pass out and they'll have rapid heartbeats that might even go into atrial fibrillation. And so I thought, okay, that to me actually seems like it's downstream of the EDS, because if you're having hyperflexibility issues, you're going to have less structure around the blood vessels, and the same growth factors that contribute to flexibility in tendons also contribute to porousness in the blood vessels. So it's basically harder for those blood vessels to constrict to allow the blood to make it back up to the brain and returning to the heart. It's called venous return. So I figured that's not the cause. And if EDS is genetic, that can't be the primary cause. So let's look into MCAS. What's actually happening with MCAS? Mast cells are these very energy dense, mitochondria dense cells that produce histamines. So when you have allergies, histamines are what give you your symptoms.
Yeah.
And so the thinking is, your immune system plays into that, and it's a complex system. So I'm going to simplify just for the purpose of this discussion. So let's say you're allergic to grass, and it's springtime and you're mowing your lawn, and all of a sudden you get hay fever. That's because the allergen has activated your mast cells, and they're releasing histamines. And wherever you happen to have the histamine release is where the symptoms are associated with. Sometimes we get rashes in our skin, we get snotty mucus, et cetera, et cetera. Like, there's many things we can get, headaches, so on and so forth. So then some people have trouble clearing the histamines, so they just get backed up and they just kind of get sick. And so the traditional theory is that that's just like a factor of this triad of illnesses, and it's downstream of the EDS. But I started looking into what happens when mast cells are activated. And I happen to know, and this is in the part 2 of my series, is there's a doctor named Martin Pall who's done work on something called voltage-gated calcium channels. And those are channels in our mitochondria that regulate how much calcium is let in to the cell. And it's interesting because it's actually very non-controversial science, because we use EMF to regenerate bone, and bones contain a lot of calcium. So there's about, I think, 30,000 studies about these voltage-gated calcium channels and how it can be used to heal bone injuries. But he looked into it and he started thinking, okay, well, what about the EMFs that we're exposed to in our day-to-day life that aren't part of these controlled therapeutic doses? What effect do they have on the mast cells? And it turns out that they, even though they're low level, they're powerful enough to rotate the calcium channel and flood the cell with calcium, which means the mitochondria have a lot of work to do to clean it up. And you wind up creating some very nasty forms of radical oxygen species and radical nitrogen species, which are those free radicals that I was talking about. Mm-hmm. And that leads to more of this oxidative damage. But back to those mast cells, they don't just release histamines. They release something called growth factors. And those growth factors in small doses help repair our tissue. But when they are activated in the long term, they actually break tissue down, including collagen and including the blood vessels, which is why I believe the EDS is actually downstream of MCAS. And so to get back to your question, no, I'm not just some guy that was just like bumbling around, like thinking, oh, maybe, well, whatever. No, I was treating clients and I came up with a theory that explained their illness. And I wrote out probably a 50-page paper getting very deep into the mechanisms behind this. And I've taken it down because right now, because I need to go through and make sure all the papers are just like iron. I don't want people like looking like, oh, he messed up there, he's a quack, like whatever. Right. I'm gonna put it back up. But this came from my research and clinical work with clients. And so when the Niners thing came up, I already had the research. It was already done. And I had already tested it in clinical practice. So
that's great.
Yeah.
And people need to know, because I don't think we've ever mentioned this, that you're a board certified quantum biology practitioner, right? I mean,
right. Yeah. And so I do client work, and, I'm not a doctor, but it was a real education. And I've been, I worked with my mentor for a year and a half now, and I have real clinical experience. I'm not just some goober on the internet, which, by the way, it doesn't matter if it's like some goober on the internet, like, right. It doesn't matter. Like, and so whenever I ask for my credentials, my gut instinct is like, fuck you. That's my credentials. Like, my work speaks for itself. Yeah. But I'm not like, that's not really how I like to interact with the world. So really what it comes down to is my credentials came with an oath that I had to sign. And part of that oath was do no harm. And so it's an ethical framework that I'm legally bound to. And so I think it's actually really important that I have those credentials.
Well, it's absolutely fascinating. And I hope that everyone watching right now will follow you at living_energy on X, and then get to that link tree where they could go to your Substack there. I mean, are there any other thoughts that you are feeling moved to share around this research? Anything that maybe we haven't touched on that you were really wanting to get to today?
Let me think. Before I forget real quick, people should find me on Instagram and TikTok too, because I have very meager followings on there, and I'd like to just get some help spreading the word.
Same handle?
No, unfortunately, I'm really bad at marketing, and I chose different names. So on Instagram, it's sunlightis.life. And on TikTok, it's sunlight.is.life, because they picked the dots for me. So
is it all on the link tree thing?
It is, yeah. Actually, my TikTok isn't, but like I'll add it.
Yeah. Okay. So this may seem circuitous, and if you don't like this plan, jump in and stop me. But if you go to @living_energy on X, look in his bio, and that's where the link tree will take you to everything else. Is that fair?
Exactly right. Yeah. And I would just say one more thing. I do want to add that I have an app. It's free right now. It's called Sunlight is Life. So just go to sunlightislife.com, and it's all about how the light stuff that I was telling you about. It's all about circadian rhythm, red light, UV, vitamin D. It's all in there.
Awesome.
And it's free right now. I'm going to add some paid features later, but anybody who signs up right now, I'm just going to give you free features for a while, just because it's testing it. And I just,
now, Mary signed up for the newsletter. Is that the same as a Substack, or is there a newsletter as well?
There is, but I'm going to combine it all. But yeah, you can sign up on.
I get it, man. There's only so many hours in a day to get all this stuff in,
totally.
In the way you want it, right?
Yeah, all my time is what it is spending on this stuff right now. So yeah, if you go to my app, you'll sign up in the newsletter to get access to the bonus features. Awesome. I haven't even sent out a newsletter yet, so don't worry about getting spam. Like, I'm not here to like. If you notice, I'm not like selling a course. I don't have like any products I'm hawking. Like I do have some affiliate links deep buried on my website, but when people ask, I've been recommending the cheap AliExpress blue light glasses because they're cheaper, and they're just as good.
Very cool.
I'm here, and so anything else I wanted to cover? Let me just cover one more thing, because I think it is important. I mentioned Dr. Andrew Marino. Let me just say he's a hero of mine, and I emailed him last week, and we've been going back and forth today, and I got an email from him that said, Peter, you are the most insightful person I've seen speak about this subject in the 50 years that I've been working with it. If you ever need anything, let me know. And that
How
was
great
just
is
like,
that, man?
that was like a life goal, like just absolutely amazing. So I want to like tout, and this guy lived it. Like he put his career and his everything, his reputation on the line in the 70s to fight this fight, and he lost. And it wasn't his fault because he actually won because he described a corrupt scientific system and he laid it out for all of us to see. And then he went back and he did the research and he proved with certainty that EMFs cause harm. And so I'm just going to give you all the reason why it's so hard to prove that they cause harm in the lab. And Robert Becker, actually, everybody should look this up. Maybe we can link it in YouTube notes. Robert Becker went on to 60 Minutes in the 70s because the US government wanted to put a massive radio antenna in Wisconsin, and they had him study it to make sure there wasn't going to be any health problems. And he discovered that there was going to be health problems. And then he realized, oh no, it's actually not just the radio antenna, it's all electrical magnetic radiation. And so he told the Navy that, and I don't remember the exact details, but they didn't listen to him. So he went on 60 Minutes and he told Matt Sawyer, one of those guys, what was happening. And then he had all of his funding taken away and basically canceled very early on. And the key thing that I remember hearing him say is in the interview was the interviewer asked, like, so you're telling me that when they find harmful results in scientific studies from EMF, that they suppress the results? And he responded, no. When they find any result, positive or negative, they suppress the study. So what they can do when they're doing these studies is the effects of EMF are nonlinear. So one of the biggest complaints I get from people in the comments is like, well, how come everybody's not injured? Because if this affects everybody differently, and we all are predisposed to different types of, like I mentioned earlier, somebody's going to get diabetes, somebody else is going to get insomnia, depression, somebody else is going to be more prone to tendon injuries. Mm-hmm. And so when they do the studies, they'll take like a rat study and they'll do one cohort, and that cohort will, after 3 generations, be these shriveled weaklings. And then they'll do another cohort, and after 3 generations, they'll be bigger and stronger. And so then what they can do is they can average it out and show, well, there was no difference because one was weaker and one was stronger. And so Marino spent his career trying to figure out how to turn that information, that nonlinear information, into a concrete signal that showed cause and effect. And he finally did it in the 90s, and he had to pair with a mathematician to do some crazy advanced math to analyze these patterns, and he did it. So the science is out there. So anybody who ever says it's never been proven is actually wrong. Andrew Marino proved it, but then he put his head down and he just lived his life, and I don't blame him at all because he did more than anybody should ever have had to do. And it was just an amazing contribution.
What was the book by Dr. Andrew Marino that you mentioned earlier?
It's called Going Somewhere, and I don't have it on my desk, but I have this other one. So Going Somewhere, A Life in Science, I think it's called.
Interesting.
And it's just his autobiography, so it's a lot about him growing up and everything he went through. But the other book I do have it on my desk. Can you guys see this?
It's Body Electric. The Body Electric.
Yeah, and even if you're not into reading deep science, you get it. And I'm gonna tell you which chapter right now, because you can just get it and read the one chapter. It's like 50 pages, and it's called Maxwell's Silver Hammer, and it's page 271. It goes to page 326, and it's all about the science of electromagnetism and how it affects human health, and the politics of MK Ultra and every other thing that connects to that. And
is that also Marino?
That's Dr. Robert O. Becker.
Oh, that's the 60 Minutes thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Awesome. Well, I mean, this has been fascinating. I appreciate you taking the time to lay all this out for us and really delve into it and share your theories. And just knowledge, man. This has really been enjoyable. So thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, no problem at all. Anytime, you know.
Yeah. And please keep in touch. If you're writing some more Substacks or having some more theories out there, please ring me up. And follow Peter on X at living_energy and look for that link tree. Any closing thoughts, sir?
I'll just drop a little teaser. I am very busy right now, but I plan on doing a follow-up about how all these stadiums are adding C-band and millimeter wave to basically, because they want the fans to be able to have that really great connectivity so they can take videos and send it. And so,
oh no.
Yeah. And so I'm going to do a follow-up about that. And I kind of wanted to wait until we get out of the shadow of the stuff, because as you said, people are sensitive about the 5G issue. It has like a stigma to it. And so
here's what would be interesting, not to give you more work, but in one of the Substacks on this, you did list like the distance like between like the Cowboys, Chargers, and Patriots. I think here's what I and maybe AI. You started off this conversation talking about AI. What if you took the practice facility of all 32 NFL teams, and if you again, I'm giving you a job here. Somehow you found the nearest electrical substation, put all that into Grok or whoever, Chat GPT, and just maybe there's a graph that shows the frequency of injuries, and then see how it lines up.
I think that's interesting, and I think here's what actually needs to happen is we need to crowdsource this stuff. I've got a platform. So if somebody else wants to do that work and they can back up their work, I will publish it. Like I'm serious. Like I'm one person, and like I'm not looking for credit here. So I will.
Are your DMs open? Yeah,
but I will say though that I think with the substation, it really has to be quite close for it to be an issue. So if it's even like,
yeah.
So and as far as I know, the Dodgers are the only other team that has one that's right up against it. But they're a baseball team, and they do spring training in Arizona, and then they're on the road like 190 plus days a year. So their exposure is different. So I would suggest people, if they're interested, look at college teams, look whatever, find something, send me the info. We'll find statisticians to do the work, and we'll publish. And you'll get credit.
I love that. I'm just looking here. Okay. Your DMs are open. So people get on it and get in touch with Peter. Peter, it has been absolutely fascinating. Thank you so much for spending time today. And like I said, if there's other stuff coming down the pike that you want to talk to me about in this audience, we'd love to have you back at some point, man.
Awesome. I'd love to come back. And thank you for having me.
Thank you, Peter Cowan. Go and follow him on X and follow him everywhere. Oh, look at Born Genius. She did this for us. Yep. The Invisible Rainbow by Furstenberg, The Body Electric by Robert Becker, and Going Somewhere by Andrew Marino. Thank you so much, Born Genius, for doing that. Peter, it's been a pleasure. I look forward to talking to you again at some point in the future, sir.
Same. Bye-bye.